Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to finish our Love and Lies duet series by Lynn today. If you have not already listened to the first book in the series, which is called All the Ugly Things, that link is going to be listed down below in the description section. Once you finish that review, come and join us as we do the final book in the duet series, All the Beautiful Things. This book starts off with the POV of Melissa, who is the sister of Hudson, daughter of David. So, this is when she is already dying of cancer. She's describing herself going to the prison. She wears a wig because she lost her hair a long time ago. And that she has been begging and pleading both her father and her brother to help Lily. So she literally tells them, like, this is my dying wish, so you kind of got to do it. She felt that if she could have, Lily could have these two wonderful men in her life, it would make the world of difference. And so that's what she's been pushing for her dad to do. Her dad declined at first, but of course he eventually caved in. And he started doing research. She had been doing research as well. So before Melissa talked to, well, I think once she spoke with Lily, that's when she started looking Lily up. So she knew her story before Lily ever spilled her guts to her. She had already looked it up. So Hudson's having a hard time dealing with this. She's accepted that this is her end. It's coming. She's facing it. He, of course, is upset because she's using her energy to try and advocate for someone else. And he feels like if she could use that energy on herself, she could possibly get better. We then pick up where we left off with the last book, which is where she finds the picture. She's screaming at Hudson, "Who is this?" He doesn't answer. And at first he keeps saying, "I know you're upset, just give me a moment to explain." And she keeps screaming, "Who is she?" And he says, "Melissa, my sister." And she says, "You let me tell you all that stuff in the car, and you said nothing." So she starts spazzing. She gets upset, and she was like, "You got me to trust you. And everything that was built, it was on a lie." She started saying, like, "You made me believe that I could have a better life," and all this type of stuff. Now, I will say this. I understand you being upset because a person left out details or they didn't tell you the full truth. I get that. But where in this do you think there is something malicious? That's the part I'm looking at, right? So they didn't tell you about Melissa being their family and that she was the one that brought you to their attention, okay? They didn't tell you that part. Is it kind of messed up? It is, because they could have told you, but it's not this detrimental thing that because you didn't tell me this, everything else you tell me is a lie. That doesn't really make sense to me, because all they've ever tried to do is help her, and they don't try and take anything from her. So, I'm just saying, does it make it so much better in your brain if you feel like they saw me, they saw I didn't have much and they wanted to help me? Maybe that makes her feel better if that was the honest truth. But if someone brings something to your attention that you don't know about, you could still develop uh that same response of wanting to help them, right? So that's where I'm kind of like, I think you're just spazzing a little too hard. Just saying. To me, I just think it's, she's spazzing a little too hard. Lily winds up going to Judith's, the diner, and she's going to ask for her job back. So when Judith comes out, Judith is, of course, like, "What are you doing here?" Because it's Thanksgiving Day. And she's like, "Well, I came to ask for my job back." And Judith told her no. And she was like, "No." And Judith told her, you're too good for this place. You've always been too good for this place. I knew it when you walked in here. And I'm not going to let you live below your potential again. She's like, clearly you want to do better. That's why you're going to school. You've been fighting so hard to do better for yourself. So why are you trying to go back? And she also told her, well, she tried to explain to her. She's like, you just don't understand what's happened. And Judith says, I don't need to understand what happened. You need to hold your head up high and you need to fight through whatever it is that you're going through. You're a survivor. This is just something else you've got to survive. She's like, because I'm not going to let you come back. I'm not going to let you digress. And that warmed her heart because she always thought, Judith didn't like her, didn't give a crap. And to realize that Judith saw her in a different light, it was like, whoa, like, oh, she did care about me. She wanted me to do better. So she's now got 3 days to figure out kind of how it's going to go down when she returns to work on Monday morning. She calls Angie to come pick her up, and Angie's going to take her back to her house so she can spend Thanksgiving with her family. Her mother's name is Mara. She's really kind to Lily. She's like, you can call me Mara, you can call me Mama. Um, she's like, but both of you are going to help me cook. um, their twins are there because she has the younger siblings. Angie does. The little one of the little boys, he's already fresh. He's held her. He's like, okay, you're cute, so you can stay. I'm like, oh my gosh. Josiah comes out. He's fine, but of course, it doesn't do too much for her because she's all stuck on Hudson. Lily does open up more to Angie and kind of explains to her that the reason she didn't really want to talk about, the prison stint, her brother is because her brother had an issue with drugs and alcohol. And he was in and out of rehab and he never wanted to get help and there was nothing that she could have done. And so she just wants her to understand all you can do is love him, your brother, and that's about it. And she also tells her, like, she's only been out of jail for like a little over a year. And how she basically went from high school to prison and out. And it's been difficult. So Andrew, of course, was like, you don't have to explain everything to me about what happened with you and Hudson. Hopefully you can salvage it. You can save the, relationship if it's worth it. She's like, whatever you're comfortable with, and you can tell me about that. And I thought that was sweet because Angie normally presses for information. So, I like that she was trying to respect her boundaries, and kind of saying, listen, I get it. You don't want to necessarily pour out everything. But if you ever want to, just know I'm here. And I thought that was sweet. So Hudson goes over to his dad's place. He's pissed. And he's like, I told you we should have told her. And now this is just the worst. And David was like, I'll talk to her. We just need to give her some time. She'll understand. And Hudson's like, no, it's on me. And they just had this back and forth about it. And then he leaves. And he goes over and kind of pines in front of her door. And she's just now coming out of the elevator. And she was like, I thought I made myself clear this morning. She sounded so cold to him. And it freaked him out. And she said, I am going to come back to the job, but I'm not going to come back on Monday. Just let Brandon know. I need more time. And of course, he kept saying, about letting him explain. And she was just like, not right now. Can't do it. Shut the door in his face. So she goes to her therapist, Nancy, and she wants Nancy to answer the questions for her as to why Hudson lied, right? That's what she wants to find out. And as a therapist, they're not going to give you the answers. They're going to try and get you to figure out that answer. But girl just wants Nancy to just tell her. Nancy throws the question at her, okay, what was it about him that you liked or loved so much? And she said, he made me feel normal. He treated me like he would have if he would have met me in college or anywhere else, any other woman. And so Nancy was like, so if he's normal, does that mean that people that are normal can't make mistakes or they can't tell lies? And so Lily says, I'm not saying that people have to be perfect, but they kept information from me that was important. And so Nancy says, well, why do you think they did that? She never answered. So Nancy said, you know, basically you want perfection from people, right? They've shown you a different side of something. You know, you come from parents that were awful to you. You come from this awful situation, you just had to do prison. And then you get a taste of someone doing the basic things in humanity, and it's overwhelming to you because you're not accustomed to it. And now in your brain, you have established that there will be perfection. You've done that. And so now they faltered and it becomes they're liars, they manipulated me. No. I don't think it's that deep. I don't think I look at it both ways. Yes, it's something they should have told her, but right off the bat, I felt like they didn't want her to believe that it was just because of Melissa. Because even though Melissa was the one that wanted them to help her, it was once they met her or start reading about her story, that they got into that place of truly wanting to help her. So they didn't want to lead off with that because then she wouldn't have received it well. That's kind of my whole thing with it. Sometimes people ask for everything, but they're not necessarily ready to receive everything, you know? And I don't think she would have took it well if they had said X, Y, and Z wanted us to help you, because she would have said, oh, so you don't want to help me yourself. She would have found a way to fuck it up, basically, you know? So I think she's overreacting. This is coming from the fact that you are in love with someone, and so now anything that is not the complete and utter truth is going to destroy you because you come from such a fucked up life, you know? And I get that. It's hard, but I do understand it. But at the same time, you are overreacting, and it helped that Nancy was trying to walk her through it to kind of show her you're fucking overreacting without having to say it to her, letting her come to that conclusion herself. She gets a visit from Jenna, Brandon's fiance. Jenna was just supposed to drop off an envelope, but she wanted to talk. So she tells her, you know, she describes Melissa and how kind-hearted she was. She was just a really wonderful person. And that when she met you and she heard your story, she wanted to help you. And it was her dying wish for them to do it. And that rocked her because that part she didn't know yet. And she said, you know, they're good people. It doesn't mean they're not going to mess up. But they are good. They're good-hearted, and they didn't have any ill intent. They didn't keep it from you to be deceit, like to try and deceive you, to trick you into something. You know what I mean? That wasn't the purpose. But I think more so it was because they didn't want you to believe that that's the only reason why we help you and why we continue to help you. Once they saw her, I think, and well, David looking her up and stuff like that, once he looked at her story and once he met her, I think he was determined to help her in any way that he could. That desire for her was there. And freaking, you know, Hudson, the minute he saw her picture, he was kind of gone. You know what I mean? So, you know, so Jenna tells her, you know, take your time, but do talk to Hudson. That man is clearly in love with you. Everybody can see it. And she's all like acting crazy like she didn't realize it. But I think it's hard for her too, because if the two main people in your life, your parents, don't love you and don't even want to be around you, kind of hard for you to think someone that is a wonderful person would love you, right? So I get why the girl has the issues. So she tells him he's been staying at David's because he was trying to give you space. And she told her, you know, please work it out. I enjoy getting to know you, and I really hope you all can make it through this. And so she leaves, and then once she leaves, Lily opens up the envelope, and it was saying to meet at the creme place where they had the cupcakes, but it was David that had sent the note. And it said, I'm so sorry for the pain that you're feeling, but please, just give me an opportunity to explain, and to meet him at 12:30, I think the next day. She goes to meet David. Of course, they are both nervous. And then the first thing he tells her is that he has prostate cancer. No one else knows. It is beatable, but it's not a guarantee. And of course, her heart breaks. He then tells her the story of Melissa, and basically how Melissa even felt like Lily would be good for Hudson. Looks like she was right. So here's the shocker. The same night that she was in an accident with her brother and he died, 6 hours away, David's wife, Melissa and Hudson's mother, was in a car accident with a drunk driver, but both of them died, the drunk driver and the mother. This happened the same day. That's that's something. And it's probably why it initially sparked something with Melissa with her, because like, oh my gosh, maybe it was a thing of a way of fixing something. You know what I'm saying? So, not that, I mean, the mother wasn't drunk, and neither was Lily. She wasn't drunk, but oh, she had some drinks, but I don't think she was drunk, and of course she wasn't driving. So, that of course started the thing with Melissa, and then the father got on the bandwagon, and he was ready to help, but that was one of the things that made Hudson hesitate, because she was a reminder of what happened to his mother. And it was a conflicting thing for him, because when he saw her, he was immediately attracted to her, and it was this conflict, so he just chose to hate her. So a few days later, she goes back to work, and thankfully it's just a bunch of mundane things she does, because that's what she needs to keep her mind occupied at this point. Hudson's been staying at his father's house. He's trying to give Lily some space. Couple days go by. They wind up being in the elevator together. He doesn't say anything, and when she gets ready to get out, she says his name, Hudson, and then the doors close. He texts her, "You're beautiful. I'm sorry," and then she messages him back, "I'm ready to talk." She wants to meet at her place, and so then when he gets off, he goes over, and she tells him that she's spoken with his dad this past Saturday, and he was thrown by that because he didn't know anything about it. And she's like, "You really didn't know?" And he's like, "No, he didn't tell me. I knew he left for a few hours and he came back tired, but I didn't know why." She tells him, "I want to know everything. I want to know everything about Melissa, your mom, your dad. I want to know everything." And he's like, "What does my mom have to do with anything?" And she's like, "Your dad told me that my accident and your mom's was on the same night." And so she tells him, "You got to be completely honest with me. Um, if you're not going to be honest, I can't handle this." So he says, "Ask me whatever you want." So he tells her about his initial reaction to not wanting to help her, Melissa's obsession in helping her. She did ask, like, "Did your father have anything to do with my parole?" And he said, "Yes, uh, as much as he could. He definitely wrote a letter on your behalf. Um, he does know people and higher ups in law enforcement. So yes, he did try and push that for you, but you hadn't gotten any trouble. You did what you're supposed to do in there, so that only helped the case when it came to you as well." And she's like, "Okay." So then she feels hypocritical, because you sitting up here demanding everything from him, and you holding a secret about his dad. And it's kind of like, you see how shit can be. You don't have a malicious intent in not telling him, but the father wants to tell him in his own time. So you see how stuff can happen and how you try to respect a person's wishes. And she felt kind of even more doing, you know what I mean? Because it was like, and you putting up all this damn shit, like he's just being the worst of the worst. But apparently, in 2 days, David's going to tell everyone about the cancer. And then she's pretty much like, we're going to see if he throws this hypocrisy back in my face. So she goes to the house for Sunday dinner. Everyone's there. Of course, they're happy to see her. Hudson's happy to see her. But he is shocked that she's there. And then after dinner is when David drops the bomb about the cancer. And everyone gasps. They are all like, what the hell? Hudson jumps up. He looks right at her. And he's like, you knew, didn't you? That's why you're here. And he stormed off. And he, of course, was like, he's tired of all these secrets. He goes in a room, starts destroying stuff. So it was a room where they had all the different pictures of all the different kids that throughout the years they had helped. There are pictures, of course, of Melissa in there, Brandon, even Hudson. They were just family photos. And he just starts breaking them. I'm like, shit. Well, busting the frames. I don't think he ripped anything up. Just busting frames. And so David's still at the table with Brandon and Jenna. Lily gets up and she's going to go in there to check on Hudson. And before she leaves, he does say the prognosis isn't really good, but it is a beatable cancer. And, I'm going to try and fight. So she goes in to see Hudson. He's, in the process of ripping the frames off the walls. And there was a picture of Lily there with her brother. And it was one where the parents had been cut out once she found out how they were. But she went on the internet and gotten a picture Melissa had and put it on the wall. Because, again, she felt like this was someone we were going to help, and that would be a part of the family. Creepy a little bit to me, but being how they are very much about foster caring and stuff like that, it's not as creepy. Anybody else, you're a stalker. But because it was really about just wanting to help her, I didn't get that creepy the creepy vibe. So then he of course felt like everyone he loves dies. That's what it feels like. So now it's that thing of not wanting to get close to anyone. And he tells her, can you just give me one night? And she says, okay. So she takes him back in there to talk to his dad for a little bit. And then they leave and wind up going back to his place. He had asked her to stay with him. She agreed. He's like, I just want to hold you. And she was like, okay. She did ask him a couple questions. She asked about the apartments that she was currently living in. She was like, were they really a part of that pre-approved list? And he was like, technically no, but the units hadn't sold. So, I figured it would be, nice option for you and Samaya as well, since she helped you out. He was like, but truthfully, I just wanted you near me. I said, well, at least he's being honest. So he had a shit's night's sleep. He was up early, like before 5 a.m. working out. She went in to go check on him, and of course his mind is just racing. And he's thinking about, appointments, what projects he's gonna have to take over for his dad to ease the load off of him. Thinking if he needs to move back home. He's got like a ton of stuff going through his mind. And she just says to him, you don't have to think, like everything doesn't have to be solved in one day. It doesn't. She's like, well, work everything out. And so he got out. He also got out of the bed too, because it's not like he wasn't horny, but he also knew she wasn't ready for that just yet. So that also was his reason for going to work out. He goes to work. Stephanie, who's his assistant, of course, hugs him, and he's like, don't do this, because he's like, I'm not trying to break down. But she just wanted him to know that she was there for him. She thought of them like family. She, of course, says, your dad's a fighter. And then Brandon came in to see him. They had a little tiff because Brandon was pretty much like, don't let what happened the last time happen again. When Melissa died, he went into a shell of a human. And so he was just trying to let him know, don't do that. You have Lily, you have a good thing with her. Don't fucking ruin it by shutting down. So Brandon leaves, and then she gets a text, and he gets a text from Lily saying is something he said to, I'm trying to remember. It was something like, you're too good for him. That's what he said to Lily. That's what Brandon said to Lily. And so she's texting him like, why is he saying that to me? And he's like, because it's true. um, he asked her if she was still mad at him, and she said, not as much as I was the day before and the day before that. And he's like, well, when is it going to be that you're not mad at me? And she says, don't push it. She goes to the wedding. It's a beautiful ceremony. Brandon and Jenna's. He makes a great speech. Hudson, it was all loving. Nice little scene to read. So while Hudson was doing his speech, he saw that Lily was sitting next to Sean, who we find out is his cousin and is also a cop. And so when he saw them talking, that's why his ass jumped up there to do the speech to draw her attention. And so when Sean had said that he was a cop, of course, she stiffened up because girl don't like law enforcement, and understandably so. And so we find out that Sean has an opportunity in Raleigh, North Carolina. He's going to be taking it. He clearly saw something was between Lily and Hudson. And they both said, like she said, it's complicated. And Hudson said, like, oh, it's just a long story. So Hudson asked him to look up Lily's father's home address. He pretty much just wants to have it in case she ever wants it. And I'm like, this is going to cause a fucking problem because she going to feel like, why did you do this and why didn't you tell me? There's going to be an issue, I feel like. So they have a dance, Hudson and Lily. And basically he's just telling her, he's asking for her forgiveness again, wanting her to trust him again. And she, of course, is still on that. I just don't know. Lily goes to the bathroom. She's crying. She's having a whole moment. And she's beating herself up because she's like, why can't I just forgive him and move forward? Like, he's done everything right. I'm just so damaged. And I mean, I know this is going to sound horrible, but she is. And it's not her fault. It's not. But she is damaged. She is emotionally damaged. And her parents did that to her. It's there. I feel bad for the girl sometimes. So Jenna's friend, the one that went on the so-called date with Hudson, came in. I thought she was going to be an asshole, but she wasn't. She pretty much was like, oh, I saw you dancing with Hudson. And she's like, well, we went out. She's like, well, one time, it was, if we call that, but he was clearly stuck on someone else. And I clearly see that it was you. And Lily was just looking like me, and she's like, I'm sure he's a great guy. Just talk it out, basically, and she gave her some powder to help her with her makeup and stuff because girl was looking a hot mess. A hot mess. So then before she's about to go outside, Jenna comes in, and Jenna was like, that man loves you. Whatever self-doubt you're having, like, really try and get through that because that man, he loves you. He just wants you. Like, the man doesn't see anybody else, So he winds up taking her home, and she was like, of course. Well, no, not of course. She says to him, do you want to come inside? And he does, and they have this magical night. So they spend that night, him ravishing her all night. They wake up in the morning. Well, actually, it's kind of the afternoon. And she's like, you know what, let's just order food, stay in, watch football all day. And then they just have more sex and just have a great time. Next day, they wind up having a conversation, her and Hudson, about his cousin Sean. And he told her that, listen, I asked him to look up a current address for your parents. And she, of course, is like, why did you do that? And he's like, I figured is something that you might want. He's like, if you don't want to do anything with it, you don't have to. But I just wanted to let you know because we're not keeping secrets. And I'm super glad he said that because I really do feel like she would have spazzed out about it. And then it would have been a whole thing. She goes to school. Angie comes up to her. Angie's pissed because Angie wanted all the deets about the wedding. And she knew about the bombshells. Well, no, she hadn't told her about the bombshells that had been dropped. So the girl was just trying to get the full details, and she was pissed off that Lily had called her and told her. So then David starts his chemo that later that week. He's being a little grumpy. Lily comes over with food. Sandra brought over because, Lily does not drive. They have a good dinner. He asked her about her classes, how they were going. She got an A in her accounting, A minus in her accounting class, which was great because the girl struggles in that class. They leave from David's, go back to, I want to say, Hudson's place, and she tells him, go ahead and get the information about my parents. Maybe I'll reach out or maybe I won't. We'll just see. Maybe then I'll finally be able to let it go if I reach out one more time. So then Ellen comes by a little sooner than her normal checkups. She brought Chinese food over and she came with good news. She's trying to modify Lily's probation. So she's got to get it approved, but she's put in for her to be able to travel further, like 400 miles. And she also put in for her to stop having to go to the AA classes and that she can now drink alcohol. So she's really excited about this. And so she calls Hudson, but she's crying like happy tears. And it freaks him out because he's thinking something's wrong. So he comes rushing over there. And she's like crying when he opens the door. And she's like, oh my gosh, I can finally have a glass of wine. So Hudson gets there when when she says that, he's like, oh, that's great. So he's happy about the travel thing because he's thinking he could take her someplace, further away, that would be nice. So she still can, they still will, might subject her to random drug tests, but that's not a big deal. That's always been a part of her probation, but Ellen never did it because she knows the girl doesn't have a damn problem. um, he leaves from there and he goes back. He tells her, he's like, you know what? Pack a bag. Let's go back to Dad's and let's share the good news with him. So she goes to David's house and they talk, and he of course is so excited for her. And then he's like, okay, let's break out the wines, let's see what you like. So he brings out a bunch of reds. She doesn't like any of those. Bring out some whites. I think what she winds up liking is Pinot Grigio, which to me is a little too bitter, but she winds up liking it. And they of course, because she was determined to find one of them that she liked. Because he was like, we can, another day we can try some, but her thing was like, no, I want to drink wine. I want to know what I like. They, of course, had a nice night. Yes, they fucked in the dad's house. The next day they go to work, and she starts to feel distance with him. And when he's dropping her off, he kind of tells her, I have a business dinner. I'm not going to be able to take you home. But he was like robotic. And he doesn't talk to her like that. He wouldn't even look at her. So she knew something was off. So we come to find out that after, like later on, she went up to his office and his assistant, Stephanie, was like, oh, he's in there with Nina, his ex-girlfriend. She's not thinking anything of it. She thought everyone knew about it. There's nothing going on. So she's just telling Lily, like, matter of factly. And Lily, of course, starts looking crazy. And Stephanie's like, oh my gosh, it's nothing. Trust me. That has been over for the longest time. It's nothing to that. And she's like, okay. She's like, I can go and get him. Like, he won't mind. It's really nothing going on. But it's kind of hard. The seed's already planted. This is an ex-girlfriend. He hadn't even mentioned her, Then again, y'all only been talking for a month. I'm not saying that you're going to know everything, but I'm just saying some stuff is like give people time to know, to tell you. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying with that. But it spirals her and it makes her start having insecurity issues and thinking like, oh my gosh, like that's why he's probably being mean to me. He's found someone that's worthy of him, that is better than me, and this is just the start of this bullshit. So she leaves and she gets a call from Angie that, hey, you want to go out, have dinner, and then maybe go somewhere else afterwards, hang out. And normally she would say no, but because she didn't want to sit there and stir all night about Hudson, she agrees to go. So now Hudson's day, he's been thinking like, shit, I fucked up. Like, I really need to call Lily and apologize for how I treated her this morning. And he's talking to Stephanie, and Stephanie tells him, oh shoot, I forgot to tell you that Lily came by. I've just been so busy working on that river project. And he was like, oh shoot, she was. And Stephanie told him like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to cause any problems, but I did tell her like that Nina, your ex-girlfriend, was, in there with you, but I tried to get her to go in there to talk to you because I told her there was nothing like that going on. And she was like, kept apologizing because she genuinely didn't mean any harm. Now, me personally, even if I know everybody know this your ex, I'm still not gonna fucking say that to you because I don't feel a need to say that to you. You know what I'm saying? But different people talk different ways, I guess. So he's like, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. It's cool. It's no problem. He's outside of the restaurant. It's a steakhouse, and he calls Lily's phone. It goes to voicemail, and he basically it's like, I'll need, let me explain everything to you about Nina. She's nobody. She's an ex. And while he's saying this, Nina's walking up. So, he finished saying what he was saying and was like, I'll call you. I'll talk to you later. So then inside, they're supposed to be having dinner with Nina, Gerald, her father, and her brother Patrick. And basically, they're both putting in bids on this river project. So this real estate that they want to build on. Both people are putting in bids. And Hudson's like, what do I need to do? Like, what is it that you want so that we basically can get you out of bidding? And they were just kind of like, no, the thing is, what can you do for us? And that's when Hudson unleashes like, I don't need to do anything for you because you all have a mountain of violations, passing stuff through, paying people off, bribery, all kind of shit going on. And if that comes to light, you're going to lose business and go under anyway. So then Gerald brings up his dad, and he's honest with him. He says he started chemo this week. And of course, Gerald's like, oh my gosh. So they all used to be close friends. But after the breakup of Nina and Hudson, of course, the families weren't as close anymore. So Nina, of course, tried to put her hand on his leg. He politely moved it off. And then Gerald says again, I'm just so sorry to hear about that. And then he says we get a little small backdrop. Hudson dumped Nina like not too long after Melissa died. But it was because he felt like he didn't love Nina. He didn't want to be with her. And he needed to go ahead and cut that loose. So apparently Nina had tried for like a year to get him back. It didn't work. So then Hudson says to Gerald again, what do you want? And by the way, he also tells, and there's a backdrop about Patrick, the son. He's a dumbass. Like, he's not that bright. He's always getting caught cheating on his fiance. He's just a problem, and he's going to drive the company down anyway, even though he's the person that's supposed to inherit it. So it's not looking good for this family. But anyway, Hudson says to him, Gerald, like, well, what is it that I can do for you, basically, to get you out of bidding? And he says, "You can marry my daughter." We go back to Lily's POV. She's at a Mexican restaurant. She's not drinking anything. She's having virgin margaritas. She's having an okay time. She met one of Angie's friends, Tamara. Tamara's very outspoken, um, but she's also not judgy. And so clearly Angie had told her about Lily's past, which kind of pissed Lily off. But I'm like, girl, I get it, but then I don't. It's kind of like, I look at it two ways. Yes, that's your business, but it is public record. Also, I feel like if you've been to jail, I should maybe have a right to know that if I'm going to be around you. Shouldn't I? Why should that be concealed from me? You know what I mean? That's just a thought. I'm just thinking. So she decides she's going to go home. She's going to call herself an Uber and she's going to go home. So they get outside and she's waiting for her Uber and she sees the dreaded vehicle that she remembers that used to sit in front of her old apartment. And it's Manny's car. Josiah is friends with Manny. How awful, right? So she, of course, starts freaking out. Josiah's looking at her like, what the hell wrong with you, you know? And she couldn't get it out. So he goes to get Angie, like, Angie, what is wrong with her? And she just points to the mark on her neck from the attack. And Angie goes, oh, shit, he's the one that did that to you? And Josiah's like, did what? He couldn't have did that. He's not like that. But then when Manny walked up and said, he looked so like snarky and just devilish, and he says to Josiah, oh, I didn't know you knew this bitch. And then he realizes, oh yeah, he did it, you know. And that's when he went punching the shit out of, he beat the shit out of him. And it freaked her out because she was like, oh my gosh, this is my fault. If I had just stayed home, like this wouldn't have happened. So her Uber comes. Angie's like, get in the Uber and go home. While she's getting in the Uber, cops, sirens, and lights are coming. Oh! And I mean, yeah, if you had to stay home, it wouldn't have happened. That's a possibility. Yeah. But at the same time, you didn't go looking for nothing. You know, you were just out with people. You didn't even know he knew these people. You know what I'm saying? So again. So then Hudson, we go back to Hudson. He's brought Nina back to his condo so they can talk. I don't think this is a good idea. So then after he's having this conversation with her, he asks her, like, did you ever love me at all? Because he realizes she never felt anything for him. She is all about status. She made a comment to him, did you love your mother? Did you love your sister? Do you love your father? Do you see what happens when you love people? Pain. And so she is just about the whole status situation with him. And she feels like they'll be a good match. And that's good enough for her. I'm like, good grief. Because you got to think, they're wealthy people. Like, yeah, you want to stay with more money. It makes sense, you know? So he winds up knocking her drink because she tried to touch him and it got on his shirt. He goes to take his shirt off, goes in the room to change shirts, and the someone knocks on the door. The only person that knocks comes is fucking Lily. And so he yells to Nina, don't you dare open that door. Of course, she knows she's going to open it. And she, of course, conveniently had unzipped a part of her blouse to make it look like some shit was going on. And it looked that way because he comes out and he ain't got on no fucking shirt. So, of course, Lily's looking like, what the hell is going on? She's crying and she's got blood on her. So he's freaking out because he's like, what the hell happened to you? You know? And she at the same time wants answers, but she's ready to run because she's just so beyond pissed. But he tells her, no, 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 you're not going anywhere. Nina, you're getting the fuck out, you know. And he was saying in front of Nina, nothing happened. There's nothing like that going on with the two of us. And Nina, of course, walks out. And she's like, I'll talk to you later. He ran Lily a hot bath. And they both got in and they had a conversation about everything that had happened that night. He, of course, offered to pay Josiah's bail if he did get locked up. And they, of course, had a nice, beautiful bath and just talking things out. And he admits that he knows in the past week he's been shutting down. He does not mean to do it. It's just that his mind becomes overloaded and he doesn't even realize he's doing it until afterwards. And then old girl Lily decides, I wonder what it would be like to take control. So Lily takes control and she winds up sucking him off until he comes. And then they have a nice hard fuck afterwards and fall asleep. So the next morning, Hudson wakes up because there's a knock on the door. It's Angie and Josiah. And Josiah did wind up getting locked up and Angie paid his bill of like $450. And so, you know, Hudson was like, I'll pay you. I'll give it to you. Like, that's no problem. Because at first, Josiah was like, I don't take handouts. And Angie was like, I do because I'm the one that paid the $450. Lily finally gets up, comes in, and we find out that Manny is still in jail because find out he has warrants because he apparent for like drug dealing and stuff. So he's going to be in there for a while. He also, Hudson asked for Manny's full name because he was like, I can make it pretty difficult for him in his, at wherever his stay is in the county. So we find out his name's Emmanuel Delgado. So you know he's going to make that shit happen. But Josiah did say this experience did teach him kind of he needed to watch who he was around. And that was good because that's what Angie had been trying to tell him all along. But sometimes it's just experience. Some people just have to experience some shit. So she sets up Hudson's apartment with Christmas decorations. She's going to surprise him. She's also got her old letters that she used to send to her parents and that were returned back to her. She's going to try and do something with signifying of how she's letting go of the past. She has written a new letter to them and she's going to send it, but she's going to put that it's coming from Valor Holdings because she feels like if it shows that, they're more than likely to open it. And I was like, oh, that's just so freaking sad. So she goes over to David so they can do the Christmas Eve dinner. David cooked, but he, of course, got tired really quickly. And so afterwards, they came back to Hudson's condo. She's like, give me 30 seconds. She goes inside, gets a couple of more things, and then he comes back in. And she got the key from Brandon, of course. He was kind of mad about that because he was like, I wanted to be the one to give you a key to my place. And then that made her go, oh my gosh, you wanted to do that. So then he comes in, he sees it, and, you know, she bought a lot of this stuff at Target, and it was also the, like, the stuff people really didn't want because it was, like, the day before Christmas. But he loved it because it was, you know, her beautiful idea, and it just made him happy. She gave him the lingerie. He, of course, was super happy about that, so they had a fun night. Also, before that, he saw the letters, and he saw also the final one that she had wrote, and it basically was all the things that she wanted to say to them. You know, basically, how could you not protect me? How could you throw me away like that? That whole type of thing. And so she again had decided after she sends this is it. If she doesn't get anything from them after that, she's done. Next day's Christmas. They go to David's house. It was really nice and beautiful. Different people came through. A lot of the foster kids that they had fostered through the years come and visit. Um, Hudson gets a phone call from Sean telling him that he has the address of where her father and mother are living. And he also got a ding because the father had some type of cardiac event and he's in the hospital. and I guess it's happened within the last 24 hours. So he tells Lily about her father. He says he doesn't have all the information, but he does have the information for the hospital for her to call to get, his status. And so she doesn't call that moment, but later on she calls. Her mother answers, and her mother says, "Why are you calling?" And she's like, "I heard dad, I heard about dad, and I was calling to see how." And her mother says that you think he would want to talk to the person that killed his son. Don't call us again. He doesn't want to talk to you. Leave us, leave us alone. So basically, don't reach out no damn more. And that right there is what she needed to hear. You realize these people are just awful. Like, there is something broken in these people, and there's nothing you can do about that. She did have some tears, but she was like, I'm done with this. She realized she deserved better, and unfortunately, she wasn't born into a family that was going to give her better, but she was so thankful that she had that type of family now. So 7 months have passed. They go to Chicago. She goes to visit Josh's grave because remember, she'd never been there. She wasn't allowed to the funeral. She had made peace with his death years ago, but she was glad to be able to see his resting place and say goodbye to him for good. Cause girl, she don't plan on coming back to Chicago after this. She wants as much distance as she can between her and her parents. So then they leave from there. They go to like this old Italian food joint that she remembers, and um, David's there. He's in remission. He's starting to put back on weight. Jenna and Brandon are expecting. So this is her family now. We find out that the Gerald guy, Nina's father, his business is going down the tubes. They kept doing sneaky shit, all kind of violations, all kind of underhanded bullshit, and they're about to lose out on some business, and they're trying to get David to come in and kind of save them. And David's like, "Nah, we not doing that." And you know what I think? I think they never really were friends. I think they were using him because of his connections. And it helped that their children, that, Gerald's daughter was dating David's daughter. But I don't think it was a true friendship. I don't. I think he was just clearly just a user. Nina came around for a little while trying to get Hudson's attention, but she gave up when she realized it wasn't going to happen. And she moved back to Chicago. And then while they're at the table, Hudson whips out a little box and he proposes to Lily. And he just said the most beautiful things to her of how much he loved her. And she's just super happy now. And of course, they are just ready to start their life together. The end. What did you all think of all the beautiful things? I thought this was really sweet. I thought it was a nice way to end the story. I like that there was not this, oh, the parents realized the error of their ways. I like that it was a thing of there are just some people that are just bad. Like they will not be redeemable. They are just awful people. And I like that she was able to have a loving family and it wasn't going to magically all of a sudden become her parents, you know? I do think it would have been interesting had they found out who she has connections with. That would have been interesting. I could see them trying to come back then, but then she would see that it was still fake. So if if the author would have done that, I would have been upset because it still would have ended in her not being in these no good people's lives. You know what I'm saying? So I still would have been okay with that. But I like how the author did that. I really did. I thought it was a cute read. A clear thing about communication and how important it is. It is just so important. Um, how do you all feel about the whole thing of him keeping the secret? David and Hudson. Do you think it was that big of a deal for her reaction? Let me know down in the comment section. If you are in the mood or need a beautiful journal or notebook, I do have those on sale, and those links are going to be listed down below in the description section as well. Make sure you like and subscribe. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.